A very good evening to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on The Agenda. My name is Toivon Jabela, your host. Tonight on the show, we are welcoming back a guest that we had once on this platform, and that is Bishop Lukas Katenda. He is from the Reformed Evangelical Anglican Church, Reach, and he is here to talk to us about a host of things related to society, related to religion, and related topics. Bishop Katenda, thank you very much for making time. We appreciate that every time we reach out to you, you are always kind enough to avail yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. You called me at the right time.
I got you the right time.
You reach out to me, I'm in town and I have time.
Yes.
But thank you.
No, wonderful. Yeah. I think let's just go back to basics. The role of the church, Bishop, what is the general role of the church, especially in the context of Namibia?
Well, the church theologically has a double role.
Yeah.
The first one is to invite people into the relationship with Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Mm-hmm. And in the second analysis, the church has a role to permeate the society with the outcome of the moral expectation of people who are called Christians. In other words, to be the salt and the light of the world. That is basically, I think, what the role of the church is. Double visioned, calling people into the relationship with Christ and permeate the society with the moral values.
Yes. Now, there's always this debate in our country that the moral compass of the country has been lost. Is the church not doing its work?
Generally, the church, people must expect that the church is not a big institution as it appears to be. Quantitatively, yes, in Namibia, we have a number of people who call themselves Christians, but I have an argument that I don't think they have reached a point where they are in a relationship with Jesus Christ. I think they are wandering still in the desert and they have not crossed into the promised land, but they have deceived themselves to think they are Christians. But if you are a Christian, there are expectations that God himself, Jesus himself, fellow Christians themselves are expecting from you. But if you are unable to fulfill these moral values, public outlook and characteristics of Christians, it's only an indicator that we only have Christians quantitatively, but qualitatively we have quite a scant.
Yeah, but what so whose duty is it then to teach me that, Taivo, you are only a Christian on paper, but your character and everything about you doesn't indicate as such? I mean, who should teach me this?
Jesus Christ, before he left this world, he appointed a number of people to act as tools in fostering the message of the gospel. Some were appointed as teachers, some as apostles, some as prophets, some as pastors, some as evangelists. Those are the people who are tasked with the responsibility to bring the message of Christ to the nations and reminding people what it means to be a Christian and pinpointing the failures, whether theological, doctrinal failures or moral failures. It is their duty, but unfortunately, I hope you have heard about the liberal democracy. We do not only have liberal democracy, we also have liberal Christianity, where God is described away, not so much described here in a way that we embrace God, but God is explained, discussed, described in a way that people have more questions than answers. And as a result, people are moving further and further away from the truth of the gospel.
Yeah. When on Judgment Day, God asks you, Lukas Katenda, I made you a servant of my teachings, and I left you with the responsibility of drawing as many people towards me. Why are you departing from a country with a broken moral compass? What are you going to say?
You are asking a good question that God spoke through Prophet Ezekiel, that you are to be the blower of the trumpet.
Yes.
When you see there is a danger coming, you have to stand in the gap and blow the trumpet and warn the people of the imminent danger. If you are not doing it, or rather if you do it and people refuse, that will be their own mistake, and they will be answerable for their inability to come or their inability to respond to the blowing of the trumpet. But in case you fail, the whole case will be on you and the pastors and all preachers, evangelists, bishops, deacons, whatever they are. They know this, and the honor is only on them to proclaim nothing but the gospel of Jesus Christ, with an aim to bring people into the relationship with God Himself and to permeate the society. As I have said, we have a double mission and double vision.
Yeah. Do you think, for example, that the fact that there are more and more preachers in the news lately for alleged wrongdoing, millions of dollars missing in the Elsin Church at Nakayale, you hear pastors being arrested, charged for rape. There was one in Soweto here in Windhoek. It's a number of them. I can't enumerate all incidents. Do you think that affects also the conviction of the masses and their belief in the preachers?
Obviously, it does. And church leadership, pastors, bishops, whatever their titles are in their various denominations and local churches, have one responsibility, which says, let your light shine before all men, so that they see your good deeds, and then they will glorify your Father who is in heaven. Every time we do anything that is public, we must always ask ourselves, is this the light that people would like to see? Can, in case these people see our work, can they glorify our Father who is in heaven? If we answer that question, among many others, I hope we will be able to do some better work. But what I see now is the inability of some of our colleagues to distinguish the role of politics and the role of the church. We are diametrically opposed because the church is there for the lost. The church is there for the struggling, for the poor, for the people who have issues, who are struggling in life, to bring the good news of Jesus Christ, that whatever is going on in their life can be overturned by faith and through prayer.
Does the church understand, Bishop Katenda, the power that it commands? The fact that almost everybody is scared to be outside the domain of either Christianity or other denominations. We are so scared to be outside it. We are all aligned to some religious beliefs and inclinations, meaning that we fear and respect the church so much. But does the church understand its power, that people actually believe in us, and therefore we must use this opportunity to drive certain messages, not only the Christian message, But even the social messages, drink less, don't rape, don't do this, don't do that.
Well, there are multifold problems facing the church leadership from my many years of experience in the church. First, it is historic. Remember, you have the division between the Eastern Europe Church and the Western Europe Church. So they are both Catholics, but you can call them Eastern Catholics, who are now called the Orthodox, and the Western Catholics, who are Roman Catholics, with their Protestant offsprings, especially in the Western Church. Our people are still unable to go beyond the Western European denominationalism. People still think they are somehow maintaining the Lutheranism according to Germany or according to Finland, or they are maintaining Anglicanism according to England, whether London or York, that we are. In other words, Protestants or Anglo-Catholics. And we are still unable to go beyond this since the division, the Western Europe thought that we are the custodians of the true faith and the real faith. And this is the mentality they brought here. And some people still think they are maintaining those type of things. But people, as theology and practice evolved over the years, people are now saying, well, the church is only important if it is taking people to Christ. In other words, we must not so much concentrate on denominationalism and maintain historic, these missionary ties, doing something in Namibia, but we are still looking in Europe if they approve you or something like that. The best way is to be into the kingdom of God now and call all people and everywhere to repent, irrespective of where they are and what they do and who they are, because we have that message not only to bring people to Christ, but also, as I said, to permeate the society with the gospel message and its moral moral attachment that is attached to it. Yeah.
Do you think that, Bishop Katenda, the church has become softer in Namibia? We know that religious leaders have played a very critical role in our liberation struggle, speaking out against injustices, confronting the oppressors in different ways, helping the liberators at the time with different logistics. But those voices today, we hear less and less of them. Yet there continues to be challenges in the country. There continue to be people who feel oppressed still in their own view on certain issues, and we hardly see, might be with a slight exception of yourself, people really coming out and say, but this cannot be correct.
Well, that's a good question, and I meet it quite often. I will answer it in the following way.
Yeah.
One, each dispensation has its own challenges, and it requires its own intervention measures. In the beginning, it was individual, especially now in the area of the liberation, it was individual ministers or pastors from different denominations who had a vision, and they made their vision known. To a certain extent that they suffered. And thereafter, those who were able to catch the vision from these individual pastors, let now say the Reverend Theophilus Hamtumbangela or Michael Scott or Bishop Awala, moderator Paul Govaseb and others, then people started to work together, knowing that unity is strength. It will be hard for the apartheid regime to crush a group of pastors, then doing it yourself, and they can isolate you and destroy you. So they were able to read the time, and they were able to craft what was working for them. But obviously, in addition to that, it was also clear that they didn't think beyond apartheid.
Yeah.
They didn't think beyond the war and so on. They were simply united because whether they were afraid or they were resolved to fight apartheid, they were afraid to fight alone and so on. And after that, they didn't have a way out. What can unite us still, even after apartheid? So they didn't know this. They were united in many ways by apartheid itself, not united because they were Christians or they had a long-term common vision that when apartheid is done, the sin of men is not yet done. More sins are going to come. They thought sin will end with apartheid, but as you said, unfortunately, sin did not end with apartheid. More sins are even more grievous in addition to what apartheid did.
So if you, as a group of religious leaders from across the spectrum, were to come together again and say, but certain things, fish rot, or the land issues, a lack of land and housing in the country, and that we demand as religious leaders, we are united in our demand that this must be rectified within this time frame. You think you will not make the same impact as those others did?
Well, I hope you remember last year I made some statements that made teachers angry. Because I said some teachers are Kwaito teachers. And they were very, very furious with me, thinking that I was too general and I didn't make some exceptions. Although I knew there are some good teachers out there. There are some good pastors who are out there who have a broader vision for the reformation, for the renewal, for the transformation of the society. But I have also every reason to believe there are some clergymen and women who I think don't understand the weightness, the weight, the command, as you said in the beginning, that the church can have, the voice that the church can have. I think they are underestimating their authority. When I teach my pastors at the seminary, I tell them that when you are in the local church, you are simply in the same group as the regional councillor on a different level, just as the traditional councillor, the headman or whatever it is, on a different level. You are commanding authority there. Just do your research, prepare yourself, study well, be prepared in terms of your eloquence and your ability to bring the message across, because you are numbered as an elder in the society and people can consult you when there are issues that need to be discussed at that level. But I see that some of our pastors have got no feeling of being community leaders. They are simply recruited by someone to do some work for someone, and they are always looking back if this person is seeing whether I am doing the good job. But I'm saying when Moses was called by God, only Moses knew what was told him by God. And he had an obligation to pass the message. God says this, God says this, God says this. And not only Moses, all other people were called by God and were given specific responsibilities and tasks. They carried it out with a mandate that God says so. But as you are asking me now, some of our pastors, I don't think they have that feeling, that agency, the burden on their shoulders. I don't think they understand it. While some of others are simply there because there's nobody else who could do better than them. So it's unfortunate, and I tried to reach out to people, and some of them are saying they don't know me or something like that, or they're afraid to be seen associated with us, and so on. I don't know afraid of who. Maybe they are working for somebody else other than God. But it's appropriate if they are not working for God.
Yeah. Absolutely. We go for a break and then return for the second part of the show.
Irongo Talk brings you community news in the Irongo region. Irongo Talk aims to reach coastal residents, keeping them updated on what's happening in their community. This show is broadcasted on NTV, Oneuptwo.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Irongo, The Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and Namibia Media Holdings. Irongo Talk focuses on community news, weather update, fishing report, helpful tips, as well as sport and entertainment. For news-related or advertising queries, contact irongotalk at synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
We continue with Bishop Lukas Katenda. Do you think that, Bishop, I see religious leaders, political leaders attending Sunday service and other religious-related events when they get appointed by the president, maybe to cabinet or whatever, they even call religious leaders to come sort of bless them, meaning that at a general level they believe in the faith. But do you think that a religious inclined political leadership can do a better job in delivering the services and whatnot, knowing that we have this mandate, and it's not just a people's mandate, it's also a God's mandate to the people?
I expect religious influenced political leaders to do even a better job because they are exposed to the morality of God. The morality of God is that you may love your neighbor as you love yourself. And remember the Pharisee who came to Jesus and said, "What must I do to go to heaven?" And Jesus asked him, "You are a Pharisee, you are a teacher of law. What is written in the law?" And he replied, "No, the law says you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." And then Jesus asks, "Have you done so?" He said, "I don't know the neighbor." Who is the neighbor? Maybe I know God, but who is the neighbor?
Yeah.
So Jesus gave them the story of the man who was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. The priest came by and thought, "I'm a priest, I can't touch blood." This man was beaten, almost dying. And the Levite was also another group of priests. And the good Samaritan came there and helped this man. And Jesus asked, "Who is a neighbor to this man?" "I know the one who helped him. So go and do just that."
Yeah.
So I expected our religious leaders, political leaders, especially who rank themselves as Christians, to really delve into the morality of God and the expectations of God, and see themselves as the Moses, and see themselves as the Davids, and see themselves as the King Solomons, and King Josiah and King Hezekiah. All these were political leaders, but they were influenced by the will of God, and they did all that they could to reform the social, the economic, and the politics of their people. But now our people are simply mocking God, if I can say that in general terms. I see some people are not very serious with the morality of God. They are simply smoke screening or sugarcoating the message. And this is where some of our pastors are not sophisticated enough to see that when they are invited to pray, they are invited to be at the government events, they think they are recognized. But we are not in the mission to be recognized by people in a way that we are also called to the tables and so on. We are to be recognized if we give the message of God, that we must save the people, we must do justice, we must help the poor, we must help the vulnerable, the orphans, the widows. It is our responsibility to remind them that this is the case. Unfortunately, some of our leaders don't see it that way, both in religion and in politics.
Yeah. I have seen you officiate at political events. I think, was it late last year, you sort of, I don't know what is the right word, but when...
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, in the north, at
Yes,
Tokanjegedi,
yeah.
Dr. Panduleni Tula of IPC, sort of blessing him ahead of next year's elections. And this is not the first time that you are officiating at an IPC event. When you say earlier that some people, when you reach out to them, they sort of just brush you off, saying they don't want to be seen with you, do you think things like that make your peers scared of associating with you?
I don't know what is in their minds. I can't really be certain and with evidence that what makes them move away from some of us. I can only assume that some are scared because they are not prepared to deal with some of us. Because myself, I have a tendency of being referential. If you say something to me, there must be reference. Remember, I do give some teachings at the university, and for us, we don't teach from our minds. We always reference. I'm saying this, but somebody is also saying this. And the majority of our people, as far as I know them, especially the pastors, are offering their personal opinions. Worse than that, they are not even biblical in their references. They wouldn't, you wouldn't get a statement and immediately come to your senses that, he's consulting the Bible as he's speaking to me, or he's consulting history, without really saying, according to this book, this chapter, whatever. I could pick it in our conversation that this person is really being biblical, is really being historical, or is being political, or is being social, or is being psychological. Usually it is their just an opinion, and they make their opinions binding. And this is something I detest really in my conversation or in my being with people. I would like to be in conversation with a person who is broader minded, a person who is well read, a person who is studious, and who is not only versed in what he is doing in that local community, but must also be national, and to a certain extent must be continental or even global, so that we can match so well. But some people are typically local. I don't want to blame them. This is what they have learned, and this is what they know. And I usually also say thank you to God they are not close to me, because we are not going to work together anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, we have an obligation to all Namibians. This is what I think of myself. I have an obligation to all the Namibians. And the IPC, as a political party, has a tendency to reach out to me, help us to come and open the gathering with a prayer, or give a biblical reflection on what leadership should look like, and all these type of things. And in fact, they give me enough time, like 20 or 30 minutes of speaking. Others would give me 5 minutes, and they always decline that I'm not coming to speak for 5 minutes. It doesn't make any sense. And even a prayer for 5 minutes, I think is more a mockery of God than anything else. So this is, I simply respond to the requests. And I'm not saying they must not request the other pastors to do prayers for them. I have seen politicians attending church services here and there, including Dr. Itula. He attends church here and there. And people seem not to be worried about that, but it is a worry when I go to the event. They just invite me at the right time. If I have time, if I have the means to get there, I would go. And this is what they have done so far. Every time they call me, they always find me having time for them. And I make time for them. I go there, I give them the message of God, and I leave. I don't care what they do politically, but I go there simply as a pastor, and I must be a pastor for all Namibians.
Yeah. Speaking of being a pastor for all Namibians, has the ruling party, for example, ever invited you to any of their events? Have you officiated at their events, or are you now seen as an IPC stooge who cannot be associated with the ruling party, for example?
Yeah, well, the ruling party did call me some years ago, not recently, yeah. But in some cases they did invite me to do the openings with prayer. The last one was when it was Team Swapo and the Team Harambe. Yeah. So I ended up doing the opening at the Team Swapo. Yeah. And remember, Team Swapo was reviled as anti-progress and anti-unity or something like that. Yeah, yeah. But nevertheless, my task was simply to do the prayer, and there I also offered the blessing for all the candidates, including those from the Harambe side, and that was it. From there, I was never invited by the SWAPO. Yeah. They invite some other colleagues, and I think they are doing a good job there.
Yeah. So the ruling party is known for, I think there's a bit of progress now in how SWAPO perceive people. There was a time when even if you liked a Facebook status of someone that is not revered within the party, you could land in trouble. Do you think, for example, that when you say, because this Team SWAPO, Team Harambe things happened nearly 6 years ago, 6 years without officiating at another SWAPO event for a person of your status, it's a long time. Yeah. Do you think, therefore, that there might be perceptions within the party that that say no, but steer clear of Bishop Katenda?
There was a time when somebody attacked me on Facebook. Yeah. When this past election, intra-party elections, yeah. And I really changed my mind. I didn't want to say so much of what people are doing inside their political organizations. Even if I have an opinion, I want to say to myself, I can't keep on commenting because all of them are my people. But there was a statement I made in 2018. I don't know what provoked it, but there was a time I said, no, Oneuptwo, people who are at least advanced, who have been in the cabinet, been in the parliament for all of these years, is now close to 30 years, please, you may make now room for the young people. Yeah. Now it's for you to step aside and just groom the young people. But I use kind of a strong language to catch the, like you do in the media, yes. To catch the attention of the people. Yeah. So people then, for some reasons, resurrected that thing and they removed the date. And they started sharing it all over the platforms on social media and so on. And somebody started then to attack me, and you are this, you are also a failure, and so on and so on. Yeah. Well, to a certain extent, I like to engage with people. If you attack me, I always want to engage you by not attacking you back, but also to tell you that I can also say something about what you said, because most of the time these people are mistaken. Yes. And if those type of things is what people are counting, they may think I am anti this or for that. Yeah. But my policy towards the past SWAPO, primary, intra-party elections, my policy was somehow to play a small role. I don't want to appear to be aligned to this or to that. One, I am not part of the Congress. One, my voice I think is irrelevant. I would trust those who have gone to the Congress and whatever they have done and have given us as a society, we must accept even the outcome of the Central Committee members, which was the first names were not the
Yeah.
I could say something, you see,
Yes.
but I said to myself, let me not say anything, because I expected these people to do a thorough job and I trust them and so on, but somehow it confirmed some doubts there, just to say that. But for some reasons, maybe my voice is not important. My parents were involved in the liberation struggle, and usually it is the liberation credentials that gives you the accolades. But unfortunately, when your parents are not there, you are not as important as your parents.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. I'm not in their minds. I don't know what is in their mind. But they have not invited me for anything.
Yeah, I don't want to labor this point, but what were you thinking, Bishop, also to officiate at the event of one faction, if you like, in a vicious, brutal fight like that, battle like that, instead of, for example, say, look, I'm available to officiate at Congress. When it opens, I can officiate there or at the closure of the Congress or whatever. What were you thinking?
Well, to a certain extent, I understand your question. I should have approached it differently. But then it is already water under the bridge.
Yeah.
I have accepted the invitation. In fact, they called me and I said, usually I don't receive calls and act on calls. Please write a letter and then I will come because I have a formal invitation, and this is what they have done. And yes, I could see the different viewpoints as I was sitting among those people. And despite, as I said, I went to the team SWAPO, I went also to pray. As I prayed on the podium, I prayed even for the team Harambee, because at the team Harambee, there was another pastor also. And I said, okay, why not me attending others if others have got nobody to pray for them? But as I said, they give me time also to speak about leadership issues, about unity, about reconciliation, about all these things. And I remember saying, whoever emerges, whether from this team or from the other team, God bless them. Those are the words I have used. Maybe not exact, but I was conscious that I was praying not only for those I attended to, but also for others who were at the same time meeting at the the youth there's a stadium somewhere in Katutu.
Or the
something like that. They were meeting there at that time while we were at UN Plaza.
Okay. No, wonderful. We will go on the last break and we will come back to discuss issues related to same-sex marriages and the church's take on that.
Generation C is a featured news show which contains news from the Zone pages, published every Tuesday and distributed cross-band in all three main publications, Republican, Namibian Sun and Algemene Zeitung. Generation C aims to reach the scholars, varsity and youth generation, keeping up with the latest MyZone news, varsity and school news. Generation C focuses on the Zone News, My Zone feature stories, varsity news, tertiary need to knows, and school news updates on what our future is up to. Contact Zone at synergy.com.na for any content, news, or advertising queries.
The conversation continues with Bishop Lukas Katenda. Now, Bishop, last Sunday I learned that there's a conversation within the Methodist Church to officiate same-sex marriages, and that the church would no longer discriminate and will allow those who have married outside the country or outside the church to be part of its congregation openly. I had discussed this thing with you before, but I had confined it to your own church. But has this, I think that was 2021, has the status changed within your church, or are you still firmly stuck to your principles that such is not allowed?
Well, being an Anglican, generally speaking, things have polarized this, as you could imagine. It started well in the United States and in the Episcopal Church now, which is kind of the branch of the Anglican Communion there, leading to revolt within that denomination, resulting in the formation of a parallel jurisdiction, which is now called the Anglican Church in North America, in opposition to what they think is a liberal revisionist interpretation of the scripture and revision of the sexual ethics and morals. And further on, it went to the Anglican Church of Canada, again also resulting in pushback by some Anglicans, resulting in the formation of the Anglican network in Canada. And then you have the Anglican Church in Brazil, the Episcopal Church in Brazil, resulting in the formation again of the parallel jurisdiction, the Anglican Church of Brazil, and the Scottish Episcopal Church, and now recently the Church of England itself, the mother church of all Anglicans. The House of Bishops and Synod, I heard that there is going to be a revisit of that resolution in July. But in the meantime, the church has accepted not the blessing, they are saying not really the blessing, but prayers for people who are in same-sex relationship, resulting in really a backlash and pushback by the Orthodox people who are concerned about the conserving the old faith, 2,000 years tradition of the morals of the church, of marriage belonging to one man and one woman. And I am, via Reach Namibia, Reach South Africa, and others, part of the conservative group, if you like, although we do not really like to be called conservatives, but rather to be called orthodox people who stand by the biblical truth. And we are organized in an international organization called the Global Anglicans or the Global South Anglicans. So you have kind of two groups, but they speak one language, the Global South and the Global Anglicans, who are saying we must extend a loving hand to all people, to all sinners, and sex and sexuality must be regarded as one thing. We don't pick one and treat it this way as a special or whatever. Anything outside of monogamous heterosexual relationship is regarded as sin, whether it is fornication, it is sex between men or between women or any other form of sexual perversion is regarded as sin without attacking anybody. But then other denominations, as I have done my research, well, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America has accepted the same the blessings.
Yeah.
The now Methodist Church has also worldwide have done so, but as usual, as it happened in the Anglicans, there are splits all the time. You now have the Lutheran Church in North America, which is a parallel jurisdiction against the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, ELCA. And then you have the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, for instance, which has been quite different for many years for theological reasons, just as you had Reach, quite different from the Anglican Church of Southern Africa for many, many years, even before the issues of same-sex marriages. So this is the standpoint. You have the divide, and you have two sides. Some are for, and they are passionate and very serious, and they think they are biblical, they are loving, the God we worship is loving, so they think we must do this. And there are those who think, well, we can love our brothers and sisters, but differently, with the transforming love of Christ. And instead of maybe engaging into these marriages, they could be helped to be celibate or something like that. This is where we are at the moment, and Rich Namibia is still part of the global Anglicans who are standing on the principle of one man, one woman marriage.
Yeah. I mean, you understand God than many of us, real or perceived. What do you think is God's view on homosexuality?
Well, if we have to understand God, we are delving into what is called the doctrine of God. Who is God?
Yeah.
And when you want to even do mission and evangelism, you always start with God. And in the beginning, God created. Who is this God? So you can ask different people in the Bible, if they were alive, to tell you who this God is, because as we take the principle from these people, Adam and Eve, for instance, they will tell you who this God was. It's the God who creates, who gives them some instructions how to live, and who takes action when people are going against him. You ask Noah, for instance, he will tell you, this is the God who told me to build the ark, and this is the God who destroyed people because of all kinds of sins, and only a family was spared, and out of this family the world emerged according to the miracles of the Old Testament, if you like. And you ask people like Abraham will also tell you what type of God is this God, Moses and others. But across all the Bible, the whole of the Bible, you will know that God created a particular order, and I think he stands by that particular order. He created Adam, and he created Eve. And since then, it has been an unchangeable tradition of man and a woman. A man will always need a woman for the human being to be full. You can't be full on your own. You are half when you are on your own. You are full when you have a person of opposite sex. But obviously, the earth is cursed because of you. And it will give us some twisted things that were not part of creation, including now diseases, including now disabilities of all kinds, and desires and all of these type of things. So it is possible there will be some problems in the nature, but that does not derail the created order. This is what I think, even in the area of male-female relationships.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ongoing processes in our courts. This one is attacking the sodomy law. This one is attacking the laws that are deemed discriminatory towards people who want to be in same-sex marriages and whatnot. and there are also ongoing law reform processes, if it was to come to a point where the country says we will now be liberal and open-minded and allow some of these things to be legal in our country, how will the church like yours handle situations like that?
Well, I don't think the church needs to be scared of anything or to be attacking people or something like that. The church is simply in its own mission.
Yeah.
To go out there and make all people of all nations the disciples of Jesus Christ, and to teach them what Jesus himself commanded. And they live like that, just like that, reflecting the reality of what Jesus had taught.
But you'll be asked to subject yourself, like all of us, to the constitution of the country.
No. They can't do that.
They can't do
unless they become so dictatorial. They wouldn't do that. But let me tell you, it could come to that.
Yeah.
But it will lead to many matters, if you know what I mean. People will, some people will be willing to die in order to preserve their faith and their purity and so on. In Western Europe, in Western countries, it was like what we are doing now. If you went to England in the 1800s or in the 1700s or even the 1600s, it was unheard of for any person to stand up in England and say, let us bless the same sex. So we are still at the stage where they have been. But the trouble for us is the United Nations in this case, and other lobby organizations that are coming from European Union or America, who are forcing our governments to accept these things so fast, even when they know themselves it took them some years, quite a number of years before they have accepted this. So if it comes to the point that we become so liberal enough and there's a general consensus among the politicians, among the general public, that this is what we want to do, the church will have a little to do in countries such as us, because this is a unitary state, a secular state, democratic states where the majority are ruling. The church must remain focused. We have already our clear mandate. It's not necessarily to prevent what the government need to do in a direct manner, but we can obviously influence them and tell them what God would do to a country itself, not to the church, but to a country itself that disregards his laws. But obviously God's elect will always stand tall, even when there are kind of miseries around them. Or if you read through the Bible, there are many instances where people were insane, where people were nasty in terms of mocking God and mocking God's people, but there will always be a remnant. So God's church will not be defeated by the gates of hell. Come hell, come high, come low, come whatever, the God's elect will always remain God's elect. So I'm not sure I have answered your question.
You did, and that wraps up our time also, Bishop. I really appreciate your open-mindedness and also your persistent kindness to always come to the platform. So it was great having you on the platform tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You were gracious enough. But you are only gracious in the voice, not in the questions.
Not in the questions. That is tonight's show with Bishop Lukas Katenda of the Reformed Evangelical Anglican Church. Just really allowing us to tap from his wisdom on a variety of issues. Thank you for watching and have a blessed week ahead.